GMO is short for genetically modified organism, and it is most commonly used to refer to crop plants for human and animal consumption. And this is not just happening in the United States, this is worldwide. In the 1970s, GMOs have slowly grown into our culture, and by the scientists who they found out a way to extract the DNA from an organism, which then eventually led scientists to find and splice the genes from one organism into the other. This eventually became the building blocks of GMOs. In the 1980s came the first transgenic plant, which is artificially inserting a gene from one plant into another, like a hybrid or crossbreed. And the first one was a tobacco plant, and it was resistant to antibiotics. Around the 1990s, the first genetically engineered cotton was successfully tested. Monsanto in 1994, they created a bovine growth hormone that was genetically modified bacteria that farmers could inject into the dairy cows and produce more milk. And Monsanto is today's leading multinational agricultural biotechnology business in America. Critics were concerned that the bovine growth hormone, BGH, could get into the cow's dairy supply and harm the cows. But by 1995, they showed that it doesn't harm the cows, and that most people have generally accepted it. By 1995, 67% of the cheese produced in the United States was produced by rennet, which is a genetically modified organism. In 1996, Monsanto released a Roundup Ready crop, and the first one was soybean. Roundup is a weed killer, and it is most commonly used in today's markets. And in 1998, Monsanto released another crop, which was a corn that was resistant to the Roundup. The advantage of Roundup Ready crops is that the farmers were able to produce a lot more crops without all the weeds getting in there and all the weeds growing in their pastures and whatnot. Farmers sprayed a chemical called glyphosate into their farms, and it's a chemical used to kill weeds. GMO crops are also responsible for the superbugs and superweeds, which can only be controlled with even more toxic poisons, which isn't good at all for the farmers or for us even, because we're breathing all that in and eating those crops too. Around the year 2000, scientists discovered that they could use these GMOs into our foods and enrich them with their products. With the brief history of GMOs, the main question is that we should ask ourselves are, first off, are they safe for us? And second off, should we be putting them into our bodies if they are chemicals being sprayed on other chemicals and we eat them? According to the website, non-GMOproject.org, they say this in their GMO facts, that most developed countries, including Australia, Japan, the European Union, the nations, and over 60 other countries, do not use GMOs, and if they do, they highly regulate the use of GMOs in their food. Let's talk about the United States. In the United States, there is really currently no bans on the use of GMOs. Just recently, the fast food chain Chipotle is now going to label all their foods and nutrients, whatever the products that they use, if they're GMO free or not. And also, the grocery store, Whole Foods, by the year 2018, they are going to put on their foods if they are GMO free and regulate them. But the store is mostly natural or organic foods. So, I mean, that's still a good thing. Some of the better known GMOs that we have currently today, one of them you can find in your local grocery store. They're called it's called the Grapple, and it comes in a set of 4. It looks like an apple, but it smells and it tastes like a grape, which that is genetically modified. The website doesn't say it is, but you can't mix grapes and apples together without getting them somehow modified genetically. And it's not a food, but another thing that's genetically modified is a fish. It's called the glowfish. You can find it in the local pet stores. They genetically modified the small little fish that kind of look like small little fish guppies, and they modified them with fluorescent lighting, so they're all different colors: pink, yellow, green, blue, etc. But the glowfish, they are only available in the United States. And from what all of this is telling us, whether it's the food we eat or the animals that we see, is that either way, it's causing harm to someone or something, because fish aren't meant to be fluorescent, and people aren't meant to eat toxic things for us. Monsanto, as I mentioned before, they are responsible for over 90% of genetically engineered plants in the year 2030. The United States is currently the world's top producer in genetically modified crops. Over 90% of all the processed food in America is genetically modified. 88% of canola and corn is genetically modified, and 86% of soybeans are genetically modified. The U.S. is among the leading proponents of biotechnology. In terms of all the land area planted of all genetically modified crops, the United States accounts for 59% of all the land area. Today, the United States is a leading grower of genetically modified organisms, and India is coming in second place with their genetically modified cotton. A recent study by the New York and CBS News says that 53% of Americans would not eat genetically modified food. One thing is that GMO crops are fairly new, and we don't know the long-term side effects of them quite yet. Throughout the coming years, it is going to be hard to regulate the GMOs in this nation. President Obama, he recently appointed Michael Taylor, and Michael Taylor actually worked for the FDA and Monsanto many years ago in the 1990s, and Barack Obama actually appointed Michael Taylor I believe it is the chief or the head staff of the FDA, and so now we have a man who was, I believe, like vice president of Monsanto. Now he is in the FDA. So basically, the whole government can now control what what foods and what organisms go in what foods, and what nutrients are taken away from them and whatnot. And another thing is that in the White House, everybody there is served organic food, and in Monsanto's headquarters, everybody's served organic food. Why do they not eat their own genetically engineered food? The United States is one, if not, it is the biggest and greatest nation, like power-wise, throughout the world. And why not feed us better food for us so we could be the healthiest and the strongest nation in the world? That's another one of my questions. And on May 25th, 2013, a couple of months ago, there was a worldwide march against Monsanto. And what that was is basically people went to wherever the location was in their city or town or state, and they didn't protest, but they marched, and it was a silent protest. Some areas were, some weren't, but millions attended worldwide, and that should show the government and Monsanto that people are actually waking up and not wanting their genetically modified food, and that they want actually better food for us.